Today I'm inviting you on a sojourn in Sonoma. While you can't join me there in the past, you can certainly schedule a visit in the future. For now, you can listen in.
When something happens that's dramatic in the weather, it helps define the vintage. And my philosophy on it is, rather than shy away from it, is just generally to lean in and make sure that that is what we build the wine around, because it's part of the story.
Erich Bradley is my guest today. He's the director of winemaking at Sojourn Cellars, and one who has the opportunity to source grapes from celebrated vineyards in both Sonoma and Napa Counties. His hands-off natural winemaking style allows the wine to express its own personality. As a result, they speak so deeply and eloquently. Erich and his team generally receive awards from 93 to 97 points, which is certainly worth mentioning. Aside from his winemaking style and the vineyards he's pleased to source from, we'll touch upon the new releases of their 2021 vintage. And during this interview, you'll receive some news about another tasting space and production facility the Sojourn team is moving into in the future, and they are very excited about it. So join Erich and me at the table, along with Fran and Sherry from marketing and the tasting salon. While you listen to the interview, you're going to hear kind of a swishing sound. I finally realized Erich was sitting next to me, and he was wearing a nylon down jacket, and as he moved, his jacket was swishing. I didn't hear it as we talked, but the microphone sure picked up on it. So thank you so much for meeting with me, Erich.
Jeff, nice to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I have to say it's nice to have another sojourn here at Sojourn Cellars.
Amen. We agree.
I know I'm probably not the first one to say that, but yeah, I like the name that you guys have chosen. As a matter of fact, while we're talking about it, your original partner and co-founder was Craig Hazarat. And did you two come up with that name together, or did one of you?
We did. We went through a formal kind of naming exercise, and we were very lucky because we had some good friends. They came out of Craig's network, but they became friends of mine who did this for a living. They were professional kind of branders, and they were good at kind of getting to the soul of what we were trying to do. And so we went through a lot of different options, and we landed on this. We kind of pulled it out of my philosophy background. I'd studied philosophy in college, and there's a Plato quote from the Republic that kind of defines a sojourn as a break from reality in search of enlightenment. We thought that was a good kind of pairing with some wine, and then the logo was born out of that as well, which was a chaise lounge that we felt like you should be reclined for this. So all that kind of came out of that exercise. It worked out better than we could have ever hoped.
We were just talking a minute ago about this location that you have, this older house here that's right on Napa Street, and what a great location for you. And it has the creeks and the history to it, but it just gives it more character.
Yeah, it was basically used as a residence before we moved in, and Craig and I, actually it was Craig's dad who did a lot of the carpentry as we adapted it to a tasting room space. This was before there were a lot of tasting rooms in and around the square in Sonoma. I want to say it was about 2009 or so. I could be off by a year, but it was a little bit ahead of, or we were a little bit ahead of our time with it, and it's worked out great. We're kind of surrounded by some great restaurants, and we're less than a half a block from kind of the epicenter of town. Yeah. So parking's maybe a little bit more forgiving on this side of things, and people find it accessible, but still connected to the history of Sonoma, and a lot of good energy.
Sojourn is so well known for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, so I was surprised to read that when you started the company and your foray into your own brand, it was with Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, I'd come out of Arrowwood.
Then when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and that was our bread and butter over there, although we made a lot of wine and a lot of different varieties that we focused on. The original wines that we made came off of a Cabernet vineyard up in what's called now Moon Mountain District, and a vineyard called Mountain Terraces.
Which has since become iconic.
Yeah, it's been there a long time. It just people weren't quite sure what to call it until 2013 when that AVA was finally recognized by the TTB. But I've been up there making wines since my Arrowwood days, and the vineyard that kind of was the backbone for Arrowwood's Cab Reserve back in the late 90s, early 2000s was called Mountain Terraces. Top was 1,800 feet, bottom was at 600 feet, all southwestern facing, volcanic soils. And the owners of that, let us have a few tons to play around with. So going back to the 2001 vintage, that's how we got it going. I was still at Arrowwood at the time, and then all of a sudden we had the opportunity to get into Pinot Noir with the 2004 vintage, thanks to the San Giacomo family.
Again, almost iconic. They're so well known for incredible farming, and they're well-respected vineyard managers.
Yeah, and incredibly conscientious citizens of Sonoma. They've been here for several generations now, and kind of are the pulse of the town as far as I'm concerned. They've become great friends and partners with this. We still make a San Giacomo Pinot from the same exact blocks that we made back in 2004. We've added more blocks, so it's a bigger program than where it started, but we've grown with them. And then we added Chardonnay back in 2011, so that was the first Chard that we did. And they're just like the perfect partners for us.
Yeah. I noticed that the home ranch that you've sourced a Cabernet from, which we might get to a little bit later here, looked like it was Craig's property. So I thought maybe your first Cabernet came from his place.
No, it was Craig's property. So he planted it himself. I can't remember what year that would have been. It's probably 01 or 02. And so its first vintage, I want to say, was 04, 05, maybe 05. And then it grew into this, kind of fun thing. We subsequently moved most of our Cabernet production, at least for a period of time, over to Napa, starting really in 2007, because we needed some separation between some other projects that I had that were focused in Sonoma Valley. And focused primarily on Cabernet, so we figured that was a good place to get some space for ourselves as we were getting more and more attention, and so were some of those projects.
That, again, was good timing, I think, on your part. I mean, certainly Napa Valley was well known and respected by 2007 and well attended by tourists, but you've got into a couple of fantastic vineyards over there that you probably couldn't get into these days.
Oh, that's for sure, Jeff. I mean, this is a lot of serendipity in play. When a project like this, goes right, there are a lot of cards that need to fall in place at the right times, and that's certainly been the case here. So, the Beckstoffers and George III, which we took on in 2008, has become, a real pillar of our Cabernet program. And then Oakville Ranch, farmed by a good friend of mine, Phil Couturi. We took that on, I think, in 2011. Maybe our first Oakville Ranch vineyard designate was a couple years after that, but that is an iconic site owned by Mary Minor, and I think one of those vineyards that people in the industry recognize as being in the top tier. And then we've done the Oakville appellation wines, and it's nice to be involved in all of that and then be able to escape it as well and go to West Sonoma County and go look at Pinot vineyards and, kind of tune out the noise. Because, Napa's so, it's not that it's congested, but, there's so many people who are making great wine that it's hard to distinguish yourself. Right. There's just more room in the Pinot world, we've found. Not that there isn't a lot of great wine being made in the Pinot world as well, but it's just not as mature of a segment of the market as Napa Cab is.
And it's fantastic to be able to have a foot in either side of the Mayacamas and offer people that variety.
Yeah, and I think it fits, certainly my eye and my palate. What's most interesting to me is making wine out of sites that are kind of different from other sites, that have wines that can be obviously from where it was that they were grown. So those wines are what I'm chasing, and I'm less specific about the varieties that I'm chasing because they're all just expressions for terroir. And to me, Chardonnay and Pinot are the most transparent and probably the most effective at communicating terroir, but Cabernet can do it as well. So it's always been interesting to me.
Yeah, if you taste a Sonoma County Cabernet Bordeaux blend of the 5 varieties next to a Napa brand, it's so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I think, even within Napa, George III tastes so much different to me than Oakville Ranch. They're both iconic, but you can taste the hillside kind of intensity from Oakville Ranch, and you've got this luxuriousness that gets communicated from G3 and those rocky soils right next to Con Creek that makes it very distinctive as well. I mean, the texture of the wines to me they're so different.
It's mentioned on your website you prefer a hands-off winemaking style, which reminds me of the Burgundian belief that the best thing to do is to do nothing. I don't know if that's the exact quote or not, but there's plenty of nurturing, though, that goes on that you have to provide throughout the season. So it's not just waiting to do a harvest. You've got a lot going on.
No, and I mean, we contract for very specific rows, and the expectation is that they're going to be managed the way we want them managed. So generally, there's a lot of time spent out in the vineyard by myself, by Randy Bennett, who's was my assistant winemaker going back to 2008, and then became the GM of the business, and now he's the head winemaker and has been for the last couple of years, and I've taken on the director of winemaking title. But this has been a long time collaboration between him and I,
right? And
it's working better than ever.
There's a few relationships out there like that, and how perfect for both people.
Yeah, when you find one, it's worth. You don't want to take it for granted.
Right.
Cherish it and kind of lean into it.
And you're certainly fortunate to be able to source grapes from some of the extraordinary vineyards, and I'm talking now more about Sonoma area, but like Gaps Crown, San Giacomo, as you mentioned, Rogers Creek, Durrell. I've had the opportunity to taste wine in the Durrell vineyard, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, Rob Harris and Bill Price have been very generous with us. Again, I think we took Durrell on 2011, 2012, somewhere in there, for Chardonnay, and they've become friends. Rob in particular, who's head of farming for all of Price family wines, and then when Bill Price bought Gaps Crown, which was somewhere around 2010, 2011, we had already been in there. So we were there. 2007 was our first vintage in there, and that was before anybody knew really what Gaps Crown was. We were the first. 2007, I think, is the first vintage that anyone put Gaps Crown on a label. And so it was us, and there maybe was another producer that did it that year, and then all of a sudden started garnering attention. Such a unique site. It's so rocky. The wines have an intensity that don't get in the way of the typicity of Pinot. So, we used to call it kind of Cabernet lovers Pinot, or Pinot for cab lovers. And, to me, when those wines have a chance to kind of lay down and bottle for a while, they get more and more Pinot-like. We had the 2010 version of it for Thanksgiving with me and my family this year. And,
nice.
I was very pleased with how it's all held up. I mean, it's really just a wonderful site.
What's the elevation on the Gaps Crown?
I think at the top, it's not that high. You're kind of climbing up the western face of Sonoma Mountain. So I think we get the blocks at the very, very top of that vineyard, and it's maybe 600 or 700 feet, something like that, if that. But it's meaningful. And the San Giacomo vineyard that we source from on Roberts Road is right beneath it. Mm-hmm. So you're looking down on it from the top of Gaps Crown, and it's always been an amazing exercise in this room when we have customers or potential customers that come to visit us, to pour those two wines side by side and then mix in like a Rogers Creek, where you can demonstrate how terroir is so distinctive. You get two sites, they share a property line. They're both Pinot Noir, in a lot of cases the same clones of Pinot Noir, but the wines barely resemble each other, and they're both great. So it's, you can see people's minds get blown a little bit the first time they experience that, and it's fun.
I just think about the winds of the Petaluma Gap just slamming into that mountain. It's just hitting those vineyards when they blow east.
Yeah, no, you got that right. And I think Gaps is really kind of on the northern end of the Petaluma Gap, AVA, as opposed to Rogers Creek that we've been in since 2008, which I think is right in the teeth of it. So you're right on 116, right. You're at elevation, there's nothing blocking that cold air that's just getting funneled in from the coast. And there's a moist quality to it too, oftentimes, especially during the summer, which I think can give the wines a little salinity. It's really interesting. The soils are different there too, but to have collected these different vineyards that are all relatively close to each other that can express Pinot Noir so distinctively has been a huge advantage for us to kind of build the business around, and just to be kind of ambassadors of Pinot Noir.
When you hear Erich express how different the grape varieties taste in other locations, whether they be Pinot Noir or Cabernet, it really confirms the statement you hear about wines expressing a taste of place. While that expression is being used quite a bit these days, it certainly has meaning. One reason I joined up with Erich was to hear about Sojourn Cellars' current wine release. We'll touch upon those next. This is On the Wine Road podcast.
Life is made up of everyday moments. The best breakfast pancakes and bedtime stories, staying up too late and getting up too early. As your public power provider, we at Sonoma Clean Power thrive on sustaining everyday moments, and we do so with a clean energy future in mind. We know these moments are cherished forever. Together, we can protect today's moments and those yet to come. Learn how your actions can make an even greater impact at poweringeverydaymoments.org.
I often get asked by PR agencies and marketing firms to promote new vintage releases from their clients. But if there's no other topic, I usually pass on just promoting new releases, because every winery has a new release every year. But I liked the idea of sitting with Erich Bradley, who I had yet to meet, and I have a respect for the Sojourn brand and the quality of their wines. In addition, the new releases of the 2021 Sonoma Coast Chardonnay and 2021 Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir are reasonably priced for premium wine, in the $30 and $40 range. So at this point in the interview, I asked Erich to share details about the cool climate vineyards he's sourcing from for these new releases.
So generally, the way that we make the appellation wines has been to not source fruit specifically for them. So we source fruit to go into single vineyard bottlings, and then, through the kind of process of blending, we come up with the best version of that single vineyard that we can, goes in there. Invariably, there are barrels that don't make it in, that are naturally collected into these appellation series wines. And it's a much more forgiving winemaking process because you have all this layering that happens from having the different vineyards kind of, almost compensate for each other. So in both the Chardonnay and the Pinot, we're able to deliver value. It's an easier exercise. I've always intellectually kind of thought of it as, if you can make a complete wine out of a single variety from a single vineyard in a single vintage, it's something that's remarkable enough to kind of warrant some sort of a premium, just out of respect for how hard that puzzle is to solve. The appellation wines, are just a little bit easier to make. So I can feel good about delivering the value there. And it's just nice to be able to have, wines that are priced for people to open whenever they feel like it, alongside wines that are more special occasion and priced.
Nice to have that on your portfolio for sure. Yeah.
There's some Durell that always makes it into the Sonoma coast. San Giacomo is a blend of multiple San Giacomo farm-owned vineyards. So there's Roberts Road, there's Vela Ranch. We used to get Green Acres. They ripped our block out. Now we've got a new block that came online last year from Green Acres. We also get some Gaps Crown Chardonnay that ends up in there as well.
Nice.
In addition to Ruling. Now, Ruling, which is out in Forestville, I think almost always 100% of those barrels goes into the Ruling blend. It's just so rare for anything to not fit into that. To me, Durell and Ruling are really, in unique categories. It's that classic Gold Ridge Series soils out in Forestville. That's a vineyard that Mark Aubert really put on the map back in the mid-2000s. Ulysses Valdez, rest his soul, was farming it back in those days. He's got a really interesting clonal mix. And we showed up out there, I think, in 2012 or 2013 and do Pinots and Chards off of it. But there's just a really unique site. But we're lucky to be able to do all these.
With your single vineyard bottlings, a number of your Pinot and Chardonnays are made well under 1,000 cases, some as low as, 300 cases maybe? So do you enjoy working with the small lot bottlings?
Yeah, it's well suited, especially for Pinot Noir. We do a lot of small fermentations, creates natural layering. It allows us to stay away from high temps during fermentation as well. You have a smaller mass of grapes in a tank. It's just harder to get up into the 90s, which means you're going to extract kind of the higher toned, phenols that I'm looking for nuance and freshness. Once you get into the 90s, which can be a great place to ferment things, thicker skin varieties like Cab, you're getting a lot more tannin from the seeds and the skins, as well as just intensity. And I'm looking for more elegance, I think, in general.
Well, it's not uncommon to see scores of like 95 to 97 points for those wines.
Yeah, I'm still kind of pinching myself. I don't know. Not quite sure how we got all this momentum, but I'm thankful that the wines get the attention that they do. I try not to.
I think that's because the wines and the grapes get the attention from you that they do.
That may be part of it, but this is a collaboration. I mean, it's a collaboration between Randy and I, and has been for a long time. But it's also a collaboration with the farmers, with the guys who are actually working out in the vineyards. There's so many things that need to go right for the wine to sing the notes that we want it to sing, and to be able to do it over and over and over again. It's kind of a different challenge. So because the weather's always different and people kind of come and go, and somehow you still need to capture the soul of the place, the soul of the variety, the soul of the vintage.
And that darn Mother Nature has to cooperate.
To me, it's the biggest challenge, but it's also the biggest blessing. Because when something happens that's dramatic in the weather, it helps define the vintage. And my philosophy on it is, rather than shy away from it, is just generally to lean in and make sure that is what we build the wine around, because it's part of the story. This is artisanal wine. I don't want every vintage to taste the same. I just want to make sure that it tastes like Sojourn, and it tastes like the vineyards and the varieties that we're working with. And they should taste like the vintages too.
Your website mentions you bottle like 21 different wines. I want to ask you about a couple of the more of those. We did touch upon some of them. But is that true? Like your 21 labels?
Yeah, I guess. I trust the website.
I was going to say, you probably don't even remember or know.
I try not to keep that close a track. I just know, whatever we're doing, we try and do it great.
I'm getting a sign from across the table here. 22 now.
Yeah, trust Sherry. Sherry knows. Yeah, and it's always kind of in flux because some vintages we'll pick something up, add it to the portfolio. But it's a lot, for sure. But our customers seem to appreciate the diversity of the lineup.
You mentioned San Giacomo is your flagship vineyard. And we talked about Gaps Crown, but tell me about the ones up north, Walala Vineyard and Ridgetop.
So up in Annapolis, so this is kind of northwest Sonoma County. It's about as close as you can get to the Mendocino County border on that side of things without being in Mendocino. It's at elevation, right on the coastal range, generally around 1,000 feet. It's a little bit of a banana belt. There's a really distinctive kind of profile for the Pinot Noirs that we've made from those vintages or those vineyards up there. Ridgetop we started in 2009. It's owned by Thomas Brown, the winemaking consultant over in Napa, who's a friend of ours. And Fred Schrader owned it for a while with him, and then Thomas bought him out. Also farmed by Ulysses Valdez, who we spoke of a little while ago. Mostly Dijon clones, but there's like this tropical character to that fruit that's really alluring. And the body is, there's this freshness, so you feel like you're close to the coast that I love. It makes it really good with food. We've also made wines from now Walala, which is another Bill Price-owned vineyard overseen by Rob Harris. And it has that same tropical kind of profile that it communicates in most vintages that, there's just nothing quite like it. You can go down that coastal range, down towards Occidental, and the profile changes. It doesn't have, for whatever reason, that same kind of exotic aromatic lift that we get out of Annapolis. Campbell Ranch is another vineyard that we've played with over the years that's in that neighborhood. We haven't had it for several years, but it had the same thing. So it's triangulated right around there on that ridge.
How do you explain that? Is it the soil and then just the cooler temperatures relating to the terroir or what?
I mean, I actually don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out why it's there. I mostly just want to celebrate it. I mean, it's there, and I know how different it is from all the other nooks and crannies of Sonoma County that we play in, and especially the Sonoma coast. So I'm really happy that we're in there. I mean, that's the other thing, going back to the Appalachian series that, we were discussing a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. The Sonoma coast, to me, my approach on that almost is as if that AVA is a vineyard in and of itself, just a really big one.
Right.
So making sure that we capture, the different parts of the Sonoma Coast AVA as we layer that wine and put it together. We've just been able to put together such an interesting mosaic of vineyards because we have the representation up in Annapolis. We have the Petaluma Gap kind of in every part of it in the portfolio. We also have Russian River and Green Valley even. So, we really can tell an accurate, compelling story of what happened in the Sonoma Coast in a way that very few other wineries, I think, can.
Really adds to the flavors and colors of the palette that you get to work with, so you have great flexibility on your blending.
Yeah, it's almost hard to screw it up. Thank goodness.
Yeah. You were just talking about people that you know and such, and you've mentioned a few names. And so aside from serendipity, relationships are such a major part of a success, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it might be the most important foundation to build something like this. It started off with the San Giacomo, certainly, but then, has grown to have all these other folks, whether it's Thomas Brown and Ulysses Valdez and his family and, or Bill Price and Rob Harris and the Beckstoffers and Phil Couturi and Oakville Ranch. I mean, everyone's family at this point. We've been doing this together, and, for it to work, they have to be great at kind of giving us what we need from them And then we have to be great at giving them what they need from us, which is wines that tell their story, that respect their land, respect their efforts, and, that people enjoy.
I don't think I've ever really put that thought into it, but it is important for them, for you to do an excellent job with their fruit and represent them in a positive way. And so it is a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think if either side really loses sight of that, things can deteriorate pretty quickly.
And it does. You hear those stories.
Yeah, for sure. And, farming's hard. So I have a ton of respect for these guys. And they seem very appreciative that we appreciate them and that we're able to honor what they do, in a unique way.
Yeah. So you're making a sparkling wine now. How did you like that experience? Or were you much involved with it?
Yeah, no, we love it. So, I find making the base wines for this is really challenging and interesting, trying to coax flavor and ripeness out of, fruit that gets picked, a month before what we're used to picking at. And the same vineyards that we're, getting the Pinot and the Chards from that go into the still wines that we make. So I found it to be just a really interesting exercise. And I think our program is still, in its formative stages, but so far the reaction from our fan base has been awesome. Right. So there will be more.
It's a brut.
Yeah, so this is kind of equal parts Chardonnay and Pinot Noir with some Pinot Meunier in there as well. But, we've got a Blanc de Blanc and Blanc de Noirs that are coming down the pipe. Good. So, I fully expect we'll explore anything and everything. We're having fun, and I think that gets communicated in what we're doing. So 21 SKUs going towards probably many more. Yeah, at least.
I'm a big Blanc de Noir fan, so.
So am I. Sparkling wine's a passion of mine. I find it to be very interesting. And my wife's. My wife loves her sparkling.
That's why he's making it. Okay, now I know why.
Your staff loves it too.
We love them all. Yeah, my wife Marie loves sparkling wine. It's her favorite thing that I do. So.
Right. One of the favorite things that you do for her.
It's probably the most favorite thing. It's okay. I'm not competing with myself.
So some changes are going on now that you're approaching your 20th vintage of Pinot Noir. I understand that you might be introducing a new label next year. And then I hear that you're moving into the old Ravenswood property just north of here in Sonoma.
Yeah, which is very exciting. So the old Ravenswood facility on Garricky Road, just outside kind of the center of town, is in the middle of getting totally redesigned for high-end Pinot Noir and Cabernet and Chardonnay production. So we're very excited about our prospects over there. It'll be a great place to kind of entertain folks and show them, Sojourn hospitality, but also just having control over, winemaking, production, all aspects of it. I think should let Randy and I kind of have the tools that we need to take these wines to their next level. All these years, as well as we have done, and all these accolades that we've received, we've been doing it, sharing space with 18, sometimes to 30 different wineries at Vinify Wine Services out in Santa Rosa, which has been an amazing place for us, and we've watched it all grow up. But, we still have to share space. So this is going to be totally unique, for Sojourn and an opportunity to, just take everything to the next level.
You see yourself expanding production as well, and then maybe even, much to your employees' chagrin, more labels and more varieties, but maybe even expanding your small lot productions?
That's certainly not where we're starting. I think, we're going to take the same production and we're just going to try and improve upon it. And hone it in. I mean, a lot of these vineyards, as we've been discussing, have been in the fold for us for quite a long time. So we have an idea of, like how we'd like them to, be even better versions of themselves. There have been all sorts of advances that give us more control over fermentation that we can take advantage of now and design into this facility that we just didn't have access to back in 2007, for example. So I'm excited about all that stuff, and congruently we're also kind of modernizing the image and the brand for Sojourn. So we're going to be releasing a whole new kind of set of labels and branding. We're retiring our iconic chaise lounge that has been a great logo / bug for us to have, but we've been around long enough. It's ready. It's time. I think our customers are ready for us to retire that and come up with something new and fresh and exciting for them. So we got all sorts of fun stuff going on and reasons to think that the best is yet to come.
That's hard to imagine. I'm looking forward to the new design and possibly better wines. Is that even achievable?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, as happy as Randy and I are with this lineup, I don't think we'd continue to do it if we didn't think we could do it better.
And you are going to allow guests to do tastings up at the former Ravenswood Erich property?
Yeah, no, we'll have it, I think, designed for all sorts of... It's not going to be like it was in terms of there'll be a main tasting bar where everybody's just congregating. I mean, that's going to be set up so that people can have, the comparative tastings that people expect from us, and have it in a relaxed atmosphere that's got great views of kind of the old part of Sonoma. I mean, you're overlooking like the Cherry Block from Sebastiani, one of the most iconic spots in all of the new world of wine. So we're just excited to be able to share it all.
I could see you incorporating the lounge chairs with the new location. Take it off the label and have some sitting around at the new location.
I like your style. Yes. Why not?
Well, Erich, it's been a great pleasure to, be back here at Sojourn Cellars again, because it's been a while for me, because, there's so many other places to go. But a real pleasure to sit down with you and hear your story.
Jeff, thank you very much. Thanks for your interest and giving us some time. Appreciate it.
The calm, talented Erich Bradley. You can see their wines and some gorgeous photos of the vineyards they love to work with on their website, sojourncellars.com. And you can make an appointment so you too can spend some time in the tasting salon, just a block east of Sonoma Plaza and about an hour north of San Francisco. Today's episode was written, recorded, and produced by me. Please subscribe to On the Wine Road podcast so each episode will automatically appear on your favorite platform. And I appreciate a positive review if that's an option. Find images, wine news, trivia, and more interviews at onthewineroad.us. I'm on Facebook as On the Wine Road and Instagram as JD Wine Road. I'll talk to you again soon as I share more from my travels on the Wine Road. I'm Jeff Davis.